and he wanted them to like set boundaries and have like those boundaries be like respected and not just like.
Good job. All right. Contestant number 2. Ryan.
Oh gosh, that's scary. I'll go. Mine was Children at War.
Okay.
My main point was this little girl named PvE Cody, I'm gonna guess. She was a little girl from East Prussia in a little town of, I have no idea how to say that.
You want me to say it for you? Schneidermal.
Her mother asked her to write a diary over the war, and she does that. And the whole story was basically just how she felt during the war, how she really changed, how it went from she was really patriotic and she really enjoyed seeing her country in the war to seeing how death and chaos and war really affects families. Because they brought the war to her little part where they brought Russian prisoners and they saw death for the first time. It was really shocking to a 12-year-old girl.
Awesome. Good job, Ryan. Thank you. Mr. Drew, would you like to be our next contestant?
Sure.
Thank you.
I don't have my sheet, so I don't know the name of it. But
I have a good idea what yours
the
is.
process.
Yes. You want to read it for me?
Okay, so basically it's just an eyewitness, and I like to think he was up in like a building looking down at him, but it was the German army was marching through their town, and basically he was just talking about how they moved and how I don't know what how organized they were moving, I guess.
There you go.
And he talked about their uniforms, how it was like a cloak of invisibility. They matched in with their surroundings, hard to spot, unlike the uniforms of other armies. And
I think their question was, what were Davis's impressions of the German army? And I think he admired their army and how they moved perfectly, and you could tell by the way he talked in the passage that he was impressed with how they worked. So.
Good job. Like that. All right. Bradley, you want to go next for me, please?
I just like read the summary and answer the question.
You read the summary and answer the question, please.
When Thompson and soldiers arrived at the Gallipoli Peninsula, they did not expect what they would find there. I'd never seen a dead man before, and here I was looking at 200 to 300 of them, said Thompson. They had learned that 300 men were gone, but 700 were left, and one night when he was doing sentry, he knew the other sentry and heard him get shot. When Thompson brought 60 men to recapture Hill 13, only 3 were left. And then the question was, does Thompson seem emotionally affected by the loss of life that surrounded him? And I said yes. And he said, what is the possible explanation for his reaction? And I said, probably because of all the loss that he saw.
That's a good conclusion to draw. Okay. Ashley, will you do yours for me, please?
So this is like the diary of Sergeant Major Beck, and it's during 1914, the war, and it's like Christmas time, and so it's the Germans and the English are fighting, and like they have like an unofficial truce because it was Christmas time. Nobody wanted to fire on anybody else, and didn't want to like each side to be shooting at each other. And so it said like the Germans shout over to us and asked us to play them at football and not to fire, and they would do likewise. And then on Christmas Day, it said not one shot was fired. And in the trenches on the German side, they were singing "Home Sweet Home" and "God Save the King." And on the 26th and 27th, it said there was only 3 soldiers wounded like in those 2 days. And the truce is unofficial, so it like slowly fizzled out. But it like set an example. Like there were other little pieces or whatever put out during other wars in like 1915, during that year. And my question was, reading this diary reflect on how the truce affected George Beck, and I put a quote in to answer. It said, Sergeant Major Beck, who served in the 1st Warwickshire Regiment, survived the war, and returned to Portland where he settled down with his wife and worked as an inspector of the National Omnibus Company. So I think that like saved his life.
Awesome. Good job. Alright, Jojo.
Alright, so my death comes to Sarajevo. Basically what mine's talking about is Franz Ferdinand was going to the town hall for the formal reception, and on the way there, while they were driving, this man named, what was his name? Kabrinovich, had an assassination attempt and like threw a bomb at the Archduke's car, and so like the chauffeur of the car sped up, and the bomb missed, but once they started speeding up and they drove away, but then they acted like it never happened, and they kept doing their thing like who was it? I think it was the general who had a speech, and he kept doing a speech, and they were thinking about like whether they should keep on doing this regular thing, because nobody knew about the assassination attempt, and they were basically just wondering whether they should keep going, because there was a bunch of people still around them, and some people got hospitalized too.
And what's your question?
My question was, why do you think Francis Ferdinand decided to stay in Sarajevo despite the first assassination attack? And I said, maybe Francis Ferdinand thought that the first assassination was the work of a lone person instead of like a regular attack, and that's why he decided to stay.
Okay. Awesome. Guys, that was really good. I liked your summaries and your answer O questions. So I'm gonna go one by one, and we're gonna do one person, and everybody can ask questions about that person, what they just said, and I'm gonna ask some questions as well, okay? And if Mr. Link has any questions he wants to add, he may as well do that. So I'm gonna start with Miss Ashton. Alright, anybody have any questions about her Christmas Day truce that they would like to ask? I'm gonna let you guys go first. Alright, so Ashton, on the Christmas Day truce, what was the feeling of the officers about having a truce with the Germans?
Yeah, it is, and this was a really,
It's in between the lines, huh?
yeah, and then I'm looking. What did you say, please? I'm not sure, cause so it says like, some of like the younger, like officers, like, it said they went over to no man's land on German lawns, and were given a drink and cigars, and like, I don't know, I mean, if I was like a sergeant or something, I probably wouldn't do that.
Okay.
If they were going over there by themselves, and if they were shot, what are you gonna do? Because they were over on their lines, and something they can't do.
Absolutely. So, I read a little bit of the background on this one, which I added the website for you to look at. So, some of the officers were a little, not happy, to say the least, and they tried to put an end to it shortly after it had begun.
Yeah.
And then when they realized that the Germans were honoring the truce agreement, then they were okay with it. But at first they were just like, no, we cannot be fraternizing with the enemy.
Yeah,
But-
they were asking to like play football and drink and all that, and it said on Christmas Day they helped assisted in burying the dead of Somerset Light Infantry. So
Yeah. The Somerset would be part of the British
yeah,
infantry, and so
I mean that would be like respectful.
it's very respectful. Anybody else have any other questions for Ashton before we move on? Okay. I am going to pick, oh, he's not here. Ryan. Alright, so let's talk about Piete. So, where did her mom stay and why?
She was the family's bread maker, I think. So she was breadwinner.
Breadwinner. That's right.
So she was just far. She couldn't really deal with it.
I'm gonna ask you another question, because that's actually really well, because she stayed, background that we're talking about, she stayed with her grandmother and her brother. Her mom owned I think it was an art studio in Berlin. And she was the one who was making all the money so everybody could live where they were living there in that little small Prussian town. But as Pieta is going to school, and it was her patriotic duty to stop using foreign words.